Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. As the RTA season of Etheria comes to a close, the development team has released a major new patch. This update brings a host of changes, from character balance to quality of life improvements. And will this satisfy community expectation? The central question now is whether this patch will finally put Etheria on a solid path towards global launch. The notes are extensive, and today we're going to break down the most impactful changes to determine if this is the positive shift the game needs. Let's get right into it. Server maintenance will be on September 24th, 2025. The compensation for this will be 200 Hydra Crystals. New content and events are also being introduced. The Hyperlink Gala event will give players an L&D selector. I, myself, am going for Lilium. What will you can pick? Let me know in the comments. Finally, we are getting a new skin for Yelly that is not a recolor. A Yelly banner will also be available from September 24th. Additionally, a returner event is available for players who have reached level 30 and have been inactive for 21 days. There were multiple other changes, but let's get to the important stuff. Let's dive into the seasonal changes and balance patch notes. Starting with Hellkid, his skill 3 damage scaling increased from 110% to 150%. Shield strength increased from 300% to 360%. Now also boost turn meter by 15% on expiry. Rose's second skill has been buffed and now applies a guaranteed bloom debuff to targets on a critical hit. Born has also received a buff. His first skill's damage is increased from 300% to 330%, and its healing is boosted from 60% to 100% of the damage dealt. Additionally, his third skill's damage has been increased from 480% to 520% and will now dispel 2 debuffs on enemies instead of 1. Tsukiyomi skill 2 now reduces her own cooldowns 2 on casting this. Shada skill 2 for each flame stacks now also gives 30% effect resistance and 15% damage reduction per stack. Max 3 stacks. This might place her in multiple bruiser comps. Naher also receives a buff, now freezing enemies in his skill 2, which already had a strip effect. Skill 3 now deals damage in 2 instances of 150% damage to all enemies, each hit having 60% chance to inflict defense down and resistance down for 2 turns and 45% chance to inflict freeze for 1 turn. Nymphaneel's skill 2 now also cleanses 2 debuffed from each ally. Lilith in her skill 2 now deals 1 additional damage equal to main target's 25% of max HP, which cannot exceed 30% of Lilith's max HP. Sealance gets a new effect added to her skill 2, which applies a shield equal to 30% of max HP to the whole team. S3 also receives a tune-up, which now inflicts crit rate down instead of attack down debuff. Hoyen's third skill damage is boosted from 450% to 520%. Yelly also received a buff. Her first skill now deals 260% damage and has an improved chance to steal buffs from 30% to 50%. Tsutomu gets a tune-up in his base stats. Victor also receives a buff on his second skill, with the damage dealt increased from 9% to 12% for every missing 10% of his own HP. Nell receives a buff on base speed from 106 to 113. Rin of Red Element. Skill 3 now has increased chance to inflict taunt from 75% to 100%. Rin the Unbound. Her skill 2 damage is also increased from 260% to 280%. Damage scaling also increased from 0.35% to 0.45% per speed point. Kazami Kazuyo. Skill 2 increases enemy cooldown by 2 turns, and Skill 3 now reduces her own cooldowns 2 and grants effect accuracy for 3 turns. Kazuyo the Reverie, decreasing her sleep duration in Skill 1 from 2 to 1. Turn meter push of S3 was also reduced from 15% to 10%. Ending the Animus list with RC77, his skill 3 cooldown is reduced from 4 to 3 turns. As for shells, Olicorn receives a buff and now dispels 3 debuffs. White Fan gets a buff that increases crit damage from 6% to 8%, but the max stats have been reduced from 10 to 8. Halloween's chance for cooldown reduction is increased from 80% to 100%. The Codex of Magic receives a nerf in PvP mode. When a skill utilizes the Codex, its cooldown is permanently increased by 1 turn. This occurs only once per match. That's all for the video. What are your thoughts on the Shell Inheritance change, your L&D pick from the selector, and the buffs and nerfs? What's your opinion on the Etheria patch notes? For me, it's a step in the right direction. I'm not happy with a few of the changes, especially some of the buffs/nerfs and the shell input stuff. I hope they make it better.